We have got a jam-packed episode. Even though a pay-per-view event did not go down, a lot of stuff happened this week. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it. We've got stuff for Raw coming up, World Cup qualifiers, things that happened on SmackDown. There was SmackDown 1000, Batista came back. NXT UK debuted, more developments surrounding Crown Jewel, the Tegan Nox injury, Alistair Black returned. So much stuff happened in the wrestling world this week. Plus in the video game world, the big story of the day, in addition to the release of Black Ops 4, is stuff surrounding Red Dead Redemption 2 and Rockstar Games. So we're going to get into that over in the video game world. But let's jump right on into wrestling. So on Raw this week, Raw was an alright episode. We got to see further developments from the Shield and whatever Braun Strowman's calling themselves. I think it's the Dogs of War. It's the group of Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler. We had 4 of those guys, Rollins, McIntyre, Ziggler, and Ambrose, engaged in 2 separate singles matches that were World Cup qualifiers, which we'll get into the World Cup later. I've got some thoughts on that. Seth Rollins faced off against Drew McIntyre first. Ziggler was there, tried to interfere. Ambrose came out, ran some counter interference, and Rollins won as a result via countout, if I recall correctly. Yeah, Rollins had just beat the 10 count, and McIntyre was not able to answer said 10 count. So we now have Seth Rollins who advances and Dolph Ziggler into who I'm sure will end up facing off against each other against each other at the Crown Jewel event. So after those 2 things happened, we had the Brothers of Destruction made a promise to DX. Pretty generic, old school Undertaker came promo. Nothing too exciting. It's just basically a lot of what they've been saying over the last weeks and months. Undertaker keeps pounding on the drum, harping on the beat that Shawn Michaels didn't come out of retirement out of respect, but merely out of fear for him or of him. We got a Women's Battle Royal for Evolution preview where Nia Jax and Ember Moon faced Tamina and Dana Brooke. Tamina pulled off a huge Samoan drop on Nia Jax, and we got a tease of the 2 behemoths in the match. There was fighting. Ember and Tamina eventually threw out Nia after the match was over. Then Ember and Tamina tried to throw each other out, and Dana dumped both of them out. Just, typical stuff with Battle Royal teases. Ronda Rousey had a really good promo with the Bella Twins. Both sides were shooting some really good insults. The crowd went all snap a couple times when Ronda Rousey made some insults. The one that really resonated the most was Nikki Bella said, that they've been knocking down doors their whole career, and Ronda says instead the only door you knocked on and knocked down was John Cena's, and he threw you right back out when he was done with you, which was just amazing. Then we had a backstage segment also with the Shield where they were all talking and seemingly joking around, and Rollins said, "Oh, you're in lunatic time, so you got back. He returned a little later than normal." And Ambrose just like, "Why you call me a lunatic? Is that all I am for you?" And just got pissed off. And they're still just trying to slow burn this whole Ambrose thing. I'm not sure if or when it's going to happen, but I feel like they're teeing it up and a little too much. I don't know if I think they're just overdoing it, but we'll see. Finn Balor faced off against Jinder Mahal in a match, and then Bobby Lashley and Leo Rush came out after the fact for Lashley's next match, which was good for what it had to do. Poor Tyler Breeze. Maybe this builds up Tyler Breeze well. as a face or an underdog, but it was mostly just to establish Bobby Lashley in his new heel persona with Lio Rush talking, and it did all right. All right, I guess. Then we had Lita and Trish come out, do a promo with Alexa Bliss and Mickie James talking about Evolution and their match there, which was okay. Nothing too spectacular, nothing special. Did what it had to do. Then we had Kurt Angle was back in a Hawaiian t-shirt, dressed up almost as if he was Hunter S. Thompson, which one of the announcers mentioned and brought up. And Baron Corbin eventually told him, oh, you're gonna have a match tonight against the Authors of Pain, and Kurt Angle was like, I didn't bring my gear. He's like, you'll figure something out. So the Conquistador comes out. Baron Corbin believes that it's Kurt Angle. It's actually just some Joe Schmo schmuck after the Authors of Pain destroy him. And Angle comes out from behind Corbin, gives him the Olympic Slam. Cool, I guess. Did what he needed to do. Natty faced against Ruby Riott, and we had just fighting between them. It was a thing. It was okay, I guess. Nothing else really to say. Just, I guess, building towards Evolution. Apollo Crews came out to interrupt Elias, and it looks like they're finally trying to do something with Apollo Crews, which is good. He actually did not too bad of a job on the mic. Elias, is gold. He does say that he makes stars when they come down to interrupt him, which is actually, I think if anything, it actually makes his star maybe brighter. But hopefully this will lead to a new character for Apollo Crews, who is like a hard hitter, who's not going to take it anymore and just beat people up. So we'll see where this goes. Hopefully bright things are in store for Apollo Crews in the future. Then we had a 6-man tag match, The Shield versus Strowman, Ziggler, McIntyre. The Shield won after there was a little bit of a breakdown, and it looked like Ambrose and Rollins were going to go after each other. Ambrose attempted to get the dirty deeds on Rollins, but they eventually came together in the end. Ambrose got the cover and the win. Ziggler accidentally Claymored Strowman, and then that caused Strowman to be pissed off. He flipped out and power slammed Ziggler. After the match, it looks like they're imploding. And then another Claymore was hit by McIntyre on Strowman after Strowman laid out Ziggler. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's mostly was just used to move the plot along, I feel. Nothing too big. Then we move on to SmackDown 1000, which was actually pretty fun. I did watch it. I watched SmackDown 1000 in full. We had Vince come out for a promo on Truth TV, which I gotta say, with the dance breaks and everything, I'm actually kind of digging Truth TV. In the first episode, I wasn't so sure what to make of it, but just how ridiculous and funny it is, and out there, and just R-Truth as a performer can be very entertaining. I'm digging it. And then we had the return of Shane McMahon come out. Shane did his typical thing. Stephanie did his typical thing. Then Vince came out, and he was just talking, and then said dance break, and it was nice to see all of them dance. So it was cool. Definitely a good way to kick off SmackDown. Nothing, oh my god, memorable, but a really good, solid start to the show. And then we had AJ and Styles Nia Bryan versus the Usos, which the Usos actually shockingly won. Daniel Bryan and AJ were at odds with one another, and then Styles accidentally put, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was Styles or Bryan. I think it was Bryan walked into a double super kick from the Usos after a miscommunication. They were arguing outside of the ring that led to the pin. I think it was Daniel Bryan that got him. That got it, because I don't think they would let the champion take the pinfall. And it was very good. Did a great job. It was great that the Usos won, emphasizing that, yeah, both these guys, Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, are good, but they're not good as a team because they're facing off against each other for a championship. Meanwhile, the Usos have been a team for years. They're going to be a Hall of Fame tag team eventually. So it's good to see the tag team division not take a hit by just by having one of the most established tag teams lose to just two guys who are in a title world title feud with one another. So, very good job at building both of them while protecting the Usos. Then we got the Evolution reunion, which was probably the highlight of the night, if you ask me, because it featured the return of Batista. We had Triple H, Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and Batista all come out. Everybody had their turns talking. The interesting thing about this promo, and also later with The Undertaker, though, which we'll discuss later, is that when Crown Jewel was brought up, the fans booed. Which goes to show how the WWE fans and universe are feeling towards this show potentially going forward, where it might go forward. But we'll get into that more in the news later. But anyway, it was nice to see Batista finally get on a mic, talk for a while. He actually got a good, strong reception, which is good because he's in his hometown of Washington, D.C., but then he mentioned that Triple H has done everything you possibly can in this business except beat him, which was great. And then the look on Triple H was awesome. And it looks like they are going to give Batista what he wants. They're going to let him have a nice long rivalry that leads to a WrestleMania match between the two of them, which would be awesome. I would like to see it. I want to see Batista come back one more time, have one final run, and see what happens. Eventually, Batista and Triple H shook hands and hugged, and they all hugged it out and everything. But Triple H, he doesn't let stuff like that slide. So I'm sure there's going to be more to this in the future. It'll be good to see what happens going forward as we see things develop over the next coming months on the road to WrestleMania, from here to WrestleMania. And we have Rusev versus The Miz in a World Cup qualifier. Aiden English distracted Rusev, causing Miz to do a roll-up with the tights pulled to win, which sucks. It's not that I don't like seeing The Miz win. I'll get to the later point of why it sucks as far as in terms of the World Cup as a whole. It does a decent job of building the English-Rusev rivalry, but yeah. Then we got Edge actually did show up. There was thoughts that he might not end up showing up because it seemed like all mentions of him were pulled from the show. But Edge was able to make it to SmackDown 1000, and he did a cutting edge segment with Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, which I thought was great. The crowd ate up everything that Lynch was saying. Lynch ran down Edge. Edge actually tried to. It was a little tough when Edge was saying how your relationships, you'll be damaged. You'll just be looking at your championships and be all alone. This is one of the things where it's hard to kind of separate kayfabe from real life, because we all know that Edge is very happy with Beth Phoenix. They've got kids. He still has his friendships. He does his podcast with Christian all the time. He hasn't burned all of his bridges. So it's a little bit of a stretch of the imagination to accept that, but it was still, I get what they were trying to say and where they were trying to get at. And Lynch played her role to perfection. Charlotte came out and really didn't say much, and then just came down and attacked, and they brawled. And this was a really, really good promo for Becky Lynch. And if she isn't firing on all cylinders right now, I don't know what you could consider it then, because that is exactly what it feels like she is doing to me. And I cannot wait to see these two battle it out at Evolution. This is probably one of the best women's championship rivalries we've seen in a while, and I'm excited to see where it goes next at Evolution, seeing where these two can take it. Then we had the swerve of the night, which, it's not too surprising when you consider who was involved. We had the New Day battle the Bar in a tag title rematch, and the Bar, after going balls to the wall with the New Day, ended up winning, because after the Bar started to decimate the New Day on the outside, Big Show came out, who came back as a face last week, mind you, for World Cup Qualifier, and then promptly turned heel. It was a shock that he showed up and that the Bar won the tag titles because of him, but it was not a shock that when Show came out, everybody knew, oh, he's turning heel, because that's what Show does. Show shows up, changes whether does a heel or face turn, and then leaves. It seems now that Big Show has aligned himself with the Bar, so it seems like they've evened out the numbers game that the New Day have. So I think the story going forward here will be, can the New Day win the tag titles back when they're actually facing a team that not only has the numbers game, but the person who evens out that numbers game is a giant like the Big Show. So it'll be an interesting story. It's just funny that it's Big Show coming back and turning once again. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here, which is what I've been saying. A lot of stuff. It's been building some really. This week has been doing some good things into moving plots along. I guess that's the main thread of what I'm getting from talking, just listening to what I'm saying about Raw and SmackDown this week. And we had a World Cup Qualifier of Rey Mysterio versus Shinsegae. It was a good match. It was a little rushed because some things went on long and they had time requirements. So it was good to see Rey back in the ring. Rey ended up winning. He goes on to the World Cup. I guess, let's see, it's 8 people, so I guess that's quarterfinals, which will be competed in at Crown Jewel. And then The Undertaker came out for a really quick segment that just sucked. And this was believed to be because of time constraints. The Undertaker was apparently supposed to give a much longer promo, but basically all he did was, what's causing that sound? Sounds like my air conditioner. Basically he came down, did his long entrance, said that he was going to beat Triple H, and Triple H can rest in peace, DX, and that was it. And then it ended. Pretty bad. Pretty not good. Not a good way to end SmackDown 1000. It started with a bang, ended with a whimper. I think that's because it felt like to me that the Evolution promo went on too long, and that's what caused the last few segments to really shorten up. But overall, I think SmackDown 1000 was pretty good. Not too bad. And with that, let me talk about the World Cup tournament at Crown Jewel. Now that we know what's going on, what's going down, what's going to happen. The final field for the World Cup is John Cena, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy, The Miz, Seth Rollins, and Dolph Ziggler. All big names, but here's the problem. Only one of them isn't an American. I understand that WWE had World Cup qualifiers that included a lot of international talent to cover their own ass, but that still doesn't make it okay. Honestly, I feel like if they wanted to do a World Cup, what they should have done is if you're going to do a qualifier, maybe make the rules so that way there can only be one representative. Each country can only have one representative. And then because you've got so many American stars, have them battle it out in World Cup qualifiers to see who qualifies as the representative for the U.S. You can make a very compelling story for that. And then you have all your international people. You could have had, in order to have variety, you could have had one of these guys as the American representative. Rey Mysterio, Shinsuke Nakamura, Sheamus, Pete Dunne, if you wanted to put him up on the main roster, Cesaro. If you wanted to bring up Buddy Murphy, you could do Buddy Murphy to do Australia. That's 7 right there, and there's only 8 people that are needed. And I'm sure there are people who I'm not. You could get Jinder Mahal. You want to put Jinder Mahal in there. There's 8 right there. Right off the top of my head. Without even doing some real serious hard thinking. And you needed 8 people in this tournament. That way you have an actual representation of the world for this World Cup. But they're labeling it a tournament to determine the best in the world. But I really don't feel like it's a fair representation of the international wrestling community, which a true World Cup of wrestling or WWE World Cup should be. So to me, I don't care. about this World Cup because it's not real. It's not a real competition. It's the U.S. It might as well be called the U.S. Cup, featuring Rey Mysterio. There's not even a Canadian in there. That's another thing I didn't mention. In my 8 people, I didn't even mention a Canadian. I know Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are hurt, but there are plenty of Canadians. I mean, technically, Jinder's a Canadian, but you could throw in a Canadian wrestler in there, Ty Dillinger. Boom, right there. You could build Ty Dillinger back up. Ty Dillinger is from Niagara Falls, Canada, just on the border of the U.S. Not that hard. I just feel like I understand that this is Crown Jewel, which is a whole other thing. And in order for promotion's sake, they want their top stars in that show. But if you want that, don't make a World Cup then. Label it something else. Don't call it a World Cup if it's not going to actually fully represent the world. That's my take on that right there. But let's move on. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the Mae Young Classic and 205 Live. We're just going to go over this stuff real quick for the most part. But the one thing we are going to talk about is the Tegan Nox injury. We did find out who will make it to the semifinals of the Mae Young Classic. And that is Meiko Satomura, who beat Lacey Lane. Io Shirai, who beat Deonna Purrazzo in apparently a really good match. Deonna Purrazzo apparently really showed her stuff here in the Mae Young Classic and showed that she is a future star for WWE. We had Toni Storm beat Mia Yim, which apparently was a really great match. Toni Storm was also on the debut episode of NXT UK because even though she's an Aussie superstar, she's big in the UK scene. Lots of things, apparently, lots of big things are expected for Toni Storm. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up being the one who goes all the way and wins. Then we had Rhea Ripley moving on past Tegan Nox because because Tegan Nox, the lady from Wales, got seriously, legitimately hurt. I don't know if anybody's watched it, but I made sure to watch at least this match to watch what happened. It was, for those who don't know, last year, Tegan Nox got hurt, tore her ACL in her right knee, and it took her a year to come back and be in the Mae Young Classic, and it looked like she was being pegged to be the one who would win it all in a comeback story. And then in her match with Rhea Ripley, almost right out the gate, she knocks Rhea Ripley to the outside, goes for a suicide dive, and it looks like what might have happened is that when she came down, it looked like her knee either caught the entrance ramp in between Ripley's legs or got caught up in the landing pad somewhere there. And it was immediate that she was hurt. She tried to fight through it. She insisted that she fight through it. And then after a couple bumps and a few minutes later, like, she even had to throw up the X, and she was literally crying in agonizing pain. Props to WWE. They did not cut away. They let the announcers go silent. Trainers came to her. They took care of her. They took her out. The crowd was silent. People were crying. It was heartbreaking to watch. A lot of people, a lot of wrestling fans, or some wrestling fans, some people like to talk about these people, talk about superstars, and we criticize them. And we criticize their wrestling build and everything, but deep down at the end of the day, they're human beings. They're people with dreams and fears and aspirations, just like you and me, just like anybody else. And nobody deserves to have something like that kind of injury happen to them. It was awful to watch. And then we found out this happened, like, actually at the tapings about 2 months ago. We found out after the fact, Tegan Nox went on Twitter and actually revealed that her left knee, which was her good knee, which is the one that she hurt, almost quite literally exploded. Almost, like, practically exploded. Didn't literally explode. Didn't literally blow up. But figuratively, practically, it did. She tore, it was, I believe, her MCL, her ACL, and another ligament in her knee. She tore both meniscus she broke her tibia, had a fracture in her tibia, and suffered multiple bone contusions, which are basically bone bruises. And bone bruises aren't like typical muscle bruises where, you'll have a little bit of soreness and it'll get black and blue. Like when your bone bruises, like you get, like I am actually dealing with a bone bruise right now. You actually get a calcium lump that comes over the bone as the bone tries to heal itself. So she had multiple of those, plus fractured her tibia, plus tore every single ligament in her knee and both meniscus. And she still tried to finish the match and fight through the match. Like, if that doesn't show you the kind of a warrior and fighter and how important this was to Tegan Nox to try and fight through it, like, and just how intense of a competitor she is and how dedicated she is, I don't know what will, because that's unreal. That's like, and she cites Triple H as one of her heroes, and it's a Triple H type of push, because it reminds me of when Triple H tore his quad, and what happened to Tegan Nox was far more devastating than the torn quad. Yes, the torn quad is awful, but Tegan Nox basically suffered a torn quad times like 2, 3, or 4. And Triple H in that match, it was him and Austin versus Jericho and Benoit, I believe it was. His quad tore, and he fought through and finished the match with a torn quad. And that's what Tegan Nox trying to do this. I saw visions of Triple H. And speaking of Triple H, there was a video released by WWE after the fact of Tegan Nox getting taken care of and just inconsolable, just devastated, crying, distraught, and it breaks your heart to see it. But Triple H comes over, and one of the things that Tegan eventually admitted that Triple H told her was, this isn't the end, this is just a bump in the road. And Tegan, again, adding to the fact that she tried to fight through this injury and finish this match, her only words to Triple H is, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Which again just goes to speak to how amazing a person, a competitor, and a professional Tegan Nox is in the pro wrestling community, in the pro wrestling world. And Triple H responded saying, don't you dare be sorry. Well, he didn't literally say, don't you dare be sorry. He said, don't be sorry. And it just goes to show that Triple H went to console her, had words with her, talked to her. It goes to show just how dedicated a man Triple H is to the talent that he's been developing through the Mae Young Classics, the Cruiserweight Classic, NXT UK, regular NXT, the Performance Center. How much he cares about all these kids coming up in WWE system and the world of professional wrestling. And also the fact that, like, how dedicated Triple H is to WWE. On top of what he showed with Tegan Nox, he revealed his travel schedule for the last week, and he went to, I believe it was New York City 2 or 3 times, LA, the location of Raw, the location of SmackDown, Melbourne, and then finally home, and I think Seattle as well, like all over the course of 8 days. He was on a plane going to a different city over the course of 8 or 9 straight days across the Pacific, across the Atlantic. Like, I feel like the things we learned from this Tegan Nox injury are 2 things. Tegan Nox is a hell of a competitor. She will come back. She will be bigger, stronger, faster, better, however that $6 million man phrase goes. And she will, so long as she can fight off future injuries, be a huge star in WWE. That's the one thing. I'm combining those into one. The other thing is just how good a spot this business will be in when Triple H and Stephanie eventually take over, especially Triple H. When Vince does eventually go, be that 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, whether he steps out or he unfortunately passes away, seeing Triple H like this and what he's done, means that the company will be in good hands. I don't mean to take the focus off of Tegan Nox by bringing up Triple H, but I feel like you should take the silver linings out of bad situations. It's along the same line. You just gotta look in bad situations like this. You have to look for the positives and use that to help move forward. I hope I said that right. So I just hope that Tegan Nox recovers fully. Mixubi, you can go ahead and you can say, oh, it was caught on camera, how perfect. You can go ahead and say that, but Tegan Nox wasn't acting in that. Triple H wasn't acting in that. That might have been filmed. Backstage, digital sometimes will act almost autonomously and do things to get content. If they see that Rhea's getting taken care of, like, let me just show you the protocol of what happens. When we found out in digital that somebody got hurt or something happened, we know that will make good content to show it. So we will go and shoot it, take pictures, take video, whatever we can, and then put it out. It's not a plan. It's not like a planned thing. It's just this happens. It'll make good content. And people want to see, people want those updates. Let's make sure we provide that content for the people. There was no guarantee that I'm sure there was no guarantee that Triple H was just going to show up. Like maybe they did say Triple H is going to go talk to Tegan because he feels bad or he wants to talk to her. So let's get a camera on that because that'll be good. But at no point do I think that was like specifically staged and planned. Like that was all spur of the moment kind of stuff. And I don't think Triple H thought, oh, Tegan's hurt. This is a good PR opportunity. Let me go get this on camera. I think it was more of a Tegan's hurt. She's getting checked out. We hear that Triple H wants to go talk to her because he feels bad. Let's capture that because we know that people will want to watch that. And I feel like Tegan's reaction and Triple H's discussion, talking to, and the words and the consoling that he showed to Tegan, I feel that those are 100% genuine. Because everything I hear about from what NXT people, and this is just third hand, what people are going to say, what people are say about Triple H lines up to everything that shows there. What was he going to say in that situation? What I am saying to you is there's a difference between him going up there and being like, it's okay, you'll be all right, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. There's a difference between that and him genuinely like leaning in and like putting his forehead to her forehead and like putting his hand on her head and consoling her. There's a like, and just the way he says it, like he did the point of the matter is that he did the right thing. And I think that they just wanted to capture that on camera, and it wasn't for PR. You can go ahead and think that Triple H doesn't care and that WWE only wants to do this to make themselves look good. Bottom line, from my experience, from what I know, having formerly worked with the company, is that Triple H cares, and that wasn't staged in some elaborate ruse to try and make it look like the big people care about the little people in the company. As far as the talent goes, that was real. That was real. You can disagree with me if you want, but from my experiences of the company, from what I've heard and from what I saw in the video, that was real. I just accidentally got rid of the tab. Because I also want to talk about 205 Live. What happened on 205 Live? We had Akira Tozawa versus Drew Gulak, which, if I recall, Gallagher basically got Gulak disqualified. And then Gulak and Gallagher decided to attack Tozawa after the fact. And Kendrick, who I guess had a falling out a couple weeks ago with Tozawa and Gulak, eventually he came out and evened the odds. So it looks like we may get a Tozawa, Kendrick versus Gulak and Gallagher thing. And it looks like Drew Gulak's firmly getting moved away from the Cruiserweight Championship scene. Then we had a pretty good match between Tony Nese, TJP, Grand Metalik, Cedric Alexander, and Leo Rush, which Tony Nese actually won. It was a really good match, and it seems like they're lining up a Tony Nese, Buddy Murphy Cruiserweight Championship match, which would be good because Tony Nese hasn't gotten a chance really to shine yet on 205 Live, and they have a friendship going, apparently, kayfabe-wise, on the show. So that's a good angle to go with. Hello to J-Walt, by the way, in the chat. And that was pretty much it for the show for 205 Live. Moving on, I want to move on to the debut of NXT. Before we get to regular NXT, I want to move on to the debut, if I can find it, of NXT UK. I might have deleted the tab, or is it here or not? Might have gotten rid of the tab. But anyway, I remember because I watched the debut of NXT UK because it was the first episode. I felt I needed to actually get the full watch on it, and it was good. I'm really glad to see WWE expanding globally and putting brands in other areas, and putting it on the network. Whether or not it's actually good for the pro wrestling industry as a whole, I don't know that. I just know that it's good for WWE, and I appreciate it because I have the WWE network, and it's better than having to try and find all these roundabout ways to watch UK wrestling. I like that it's under the WWE brand, and it's got a higher production quality behind it. It started out with a match between Joe Kofi and Mark Andrews, which Joe Kofi eventually won. Really good match. They did a good job of selling the fact that Andrews is very good. Even though he's also a good high flyer, he can use strikes to get to people, and they really use the fact that he was relying heavily on his strikes to just stand a chance against Kofi, but eventually the size, strength, and power of Kofi, combined with the fact that his brother ringside was too much for Mark Andrews. And then we had a cool thing where the Kofi brothers looked like they were going to beat up on Mark Andrews, and we got Flash Morgan Webster, the mod father, show up and basically swinging his motorcycle helmet around like mad, scaring the Kofi brothers away. And it looks like we may have what seems to be maybe the development of an NXT UK tag division forming, where you might have Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews as a tag team, and the Kofi brothers as a tag team to go up against Mustache Mountain, who came out for a promo right after that and talked about how we want the best competition possible, so people buddy up, get your friends. We want to take on the best there is to be those first NXT UK tag team champions. The championships haven't been revealed yet, so they talked about how waiting for that to get revealed. Mustache Mountain got a huge ovation from the crowd. The crowd almost wouldn't let them speak. They were so over, which is to be understood. Mustache Mountain is amazing. Yeah, just a good solid promo. It was kind of the almost welcome to NXT UK promo, as well as a introductory to the fact that they will be having a tag division. I think Stupid brings up in the chat, I'm curious to see how they view the UK version. Will they bring somebody from there straight to the main roster? Will they have to go to NXT before they go to the main roster? I'm curious to see how that happens too. I'm not sure. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there's like some cross-brand stuff eventually once NXT UK establishes itself. I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe eventually we get a pay-per-view where it's NXT versus NXT UK. And I think they will eventually be treated like equals. And maybe some NXT takeovers will have an NXT UK match or two, and it'll be like almost like a Raw and SmackDown type of thing, except it's regional based. And then eventually maybe some NXT UK guys will just go straight to the main roster instead of going to NXT. I think that's how it will work, but we'll we'll have to wait and see and find out. We also got a promo for this guy. His last name was one of his names was Dennis. Dennis is the only name that I remember. But he talked about how he has ties to Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne growing up, how they weren't always looking to make a lot of they weren't always doing it to make a lot of money. They were just doing it because they loved wrestling, and that he's got some stories to tell. And we're waiting for him to debut. It was a little vignette, kind of cool. Then we had Toni Storm go up against cannot remember. I really wish I didn't. I guess I deleted the tab that had the results on here. I don't know where it went. But anyway, it was a good match. Solid. Toni Storm won. Toni Storm's over. Toni Storm's good. Then we had the main event of the evening. Actually, we didn't have the main event of the evening. We had what was essentially a squash match involving Dave Mastiff and one of the other competitors of NXT UK, who I cannot remember his name. And Dave Mastiff, I love him. I absolutely love him. I think he is an amazingly athletic big man. He's got a unique look about him, and he's just, you can feel the energy around him when he competes too. Just a really good job of showcasing who Mastiff is and what he can do, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the future. Then we got the main event, which was Pete Dunne versus Noam Dar for the NXT UK title, which was a strong, solid, really good match. Which we had Pete Dunne halfway through trying to work on the finger of Noam Dar, which Noam Dar constantly was putting his pinky up in Dunne's face, which eventually came back to haunt him after locking in the knee bar. Thought he had him. Then Dunne escapes. Dar makes a mistake of putting the pinky in his face. Dunne grabs it, bends it. The way that he bent Dar's finger was incredibly gross. Makes me almost think that maybe Dar might be double jointed in some of those fingers. And then stomped his hand, gave him his finisher, and got the pin for the 1-2-3. For some reason, why am I forgetting? I just blanked on Pete Dunne's finisher. The pump handle into the flatliner, the proper name. But it was a good, solid match. After the fact, they got up. It looked like they were going to shake. Pete Dunne offered to shake hands with Noam Dar. Dar offered his good pinky, which he wasn't selling. He sold as if like his one pinky might be broken. But he put his pinky up, but Pete Dunne matched him at the same time. The bitter end. There it is. Thank you, Chelsea. And hello, Chelsea, who is in the chat. Overall, I thought it was a really good match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the first episode of NXT UK. I'm looking forward to seeing where things go from here. They didn't really develop much from a story perspective. It was more of this is NXT UK. This is what we're about. They established there'll be a tag division. They teased that the Kofi brothers and Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster might be a tag team. They established Dave Mastiff. They did a vignette for one other guy and showed that Toni Storm's awesome. So, solid first episode. Looking forward to seeing what they've got coming up next week. Then, talking briefly about NXT, normal NXT, Alistair Black returned. There were a couple returns, actually. It wasn't just Alistair Black. The first one, though, War Raiders faced off against Undisputed Era. It looked like War Raiders were going to win, and then Bobby Fish made his long-awaited return from injury with a steel chair and took it to the War Raiders, and now it's a 4-on-2 numbers game between the Undisputed Era and the War Raiders, and now things are going to get interesting because all of Undisputed Era is around. It seems like I'm wondering if they might Freebird rule the tag titles or not, because if so, it's going to be very interesting because Kyle O'Reilly won the tag titles with Bobby Fish, but has been defending them. He defended it once when Bobby Fish was initially hurt with Adam Cole, but has been defending them with Roderick Strong of late. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We can now go full on into the rise and maybe potential fall and breaking apart of Undisputed Era going forward. Then we got Shayna Baszler beating up on Britt Baker to reestablish her as a ruthless heel and ruthless aggressive challenger. Thank you, by the way, to Chelsea for the host on Twitch. And no, Alistair Black was hurt, and he was going to come back to... It was thought that maybe he'd go to the main roster when he came back, but I think the large belief was that he was going to be coming back to NXT. And then they revealed the whole storyline with the Keeper of Secrets, Nikki Cross, that she knew. So you kind of knew that if she knew the secret, then that maybe that Alistair Black would probably come back to try and take revenge. We also had a tag match with Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, where the two of them won against Tian Bing and Rocky to establish Burch and Lorcan as a strong tag team, maybe potential challengers to the tag team titles against Undisputed Era. Then we had a really good match, solid match between Nikki Cross and Bianca Belair that ended in a no contest because Alistair Black returned. The lights went out. Black was sitting there with his leg crossed in the middle of the ring, seething, telling Nikki Cross to tell him, and then Nikki Cross told him, gleefully rolled out of the ring, and Alistair Black looked pissed and angry. So it looks like next week we may finally find out who attacked Alistair Black. Now the question is, who is it? Will it be Tommaso Ciampa? Will it be Johnny Gargano? Maybe EC3? Maybe even they throw a wrench into things and maybe it was Velveteen Dream. We'll see. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens on NXT. And that's all the wrestling that happened this week in WWE. Just a whole lot of wrestling. We had a SmackDown 1000, Raw, Mae Young Classic with the big Tegan Nox injury, NXT UK debuting 205 Live and NXT regularly. That's 5 different things of wrestling. And we didn't even talk about the Mixed Match Challenge, which I believe had some matches too. Like, WWE is just getting huge. Ridiculously huge. So, it's going to be fun trying to keep up on this podcast. Now, I want to move on to the news in wrestling. And there are updates on Crown Jewel. For those of you who may or may not have noticed, during all of the WWE shows this week, they removed the fact that Crown Jewel was taking place in Saudi Arabia. They just would mention the show in general. They didn't mention anything about where it would be taking place. So people are believing, well, maybe they are really either they're trying to separate from the fact that it is happening in Saudi Arabia, and they're trying to just be like, oh, we're just having this event here. Maybe we're not. Maybe they won't propagandize Saudi Arabia or play up the regime and the government there. Or maybe they are actually trying to find another place to move it to. And another thing that led to the fact that maybe this is going to happen somewhere else is the fact that, and as of when I did my research this morning, this hasn't changed, but apparently the on sale date for Crown Jewel was supposed to be yesterday. Tickets were supposed to go on sale for the show yesterday, and they didn't. The date has now been moved to November 2nd, 2 weeks from now, which is the day of the show. Yikes. So people aren't sure if this means that maybe WWE is still trying to play the waiting game, see how things play out, or maybe they're still trying to get another venue and move where the show is going to happen. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. As far as what's happened in the latest developments with the story around Khashoggi, the Saudi journalist who was murdered in the allegedly, I have to say allegedly because technically it hasn't been proven yet, allegedly murdered, tortured, killed, and dismembered in the Turkish consulate. Saudi Arabia said last night that what happened was that Khashoggi, upon entering the consulate, got into a fist fight and died in a fist fight. which totally explains why they had to freak out and cut up his body into pieces and leave no trace or evidence and completely scrub up the entire consulate. That doesn't add up. If it was an accidental death, maybe you admit it. I don't think you go through this much of a cover-up through an accidental death. So I think the Saudi government is just trying to desperately cover things up. And reports are also emerging that a lot of people involved in the cover-up and the killing of Khashoggi, 2 senior members in the government have been sacked, lost their jobs, and a bunch of people involved, I think I've heard 6, I think I've heard 15, have been imprisoned. But you could also argue the fact they're not being imprisoned because they did it. They're being imprisoned because they didn't do a good enough job of covering it up. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes next from the government of Saudi Arabia, if they stick to their guns on this or if they change their opinion. President Trump has apparently claimed that the Saudis' explanation is credible, but a lot of Republican lawmakers are saying that it doesn't add up, along with Turkish individuals. Turkish officials. And Turkey is still claiming that they have video and audio evidence of Khashoggi being tortured and killed. So the situation is not getting any better, especially for WWE. And more people, from what I'm hearing, are pulling out of that business summit that's going on. So we'll see. One analyst via Deadline has said that if WWE does pull out of the deal, the long-term deal with Saudi Arabia, they are expected to lose between $12 and $16 million. So WWE is at a huge impasse here. They stand to lose either millions of dollars or their moral soul, if you think about it, and suffer a huge double black eye PR wise as a company. So it's a lose-lose situation for WWE. I think the right move is to pull out, at least for this show. Don't do Crown Jewel. Pull out a Crown Jewel. Wait for the dust to settle of this, and then see if maybe going in and continuing the rest of the deal, if you can do some good there. And maybe don't propagandize the government as much. Maybe. I don't know, but we're 2 weeks away now from this show. We don't have a location anymore. The location isn't being advertised. It's still set to go happen in Saudi Arabia, but WWE hasn't announced it. They're still monitoring the situation, and ticket sales have been pushed back. So I'm sure we'll have an update next week. I'm sure hopefully by next week we'll finally know where WWE stands. Hello to Nelson Lopez in the chat, by the way. One last final thing I want to talk about regarding Crown Jewel is that Randy Orton decided to weigh in. He was asked by TMZ, ran into by TMZ Sports, and got asked his thoughts. And this is Randy Orton's quote on the situation. He says, "I think we should go. I think the only way to help with change over there is to go and not cancel the trip. That's the goal. That's the goal, to make things better elsewhere. And I think us not going doesn't help. Going helps. And I do agree to an extent with what Randy Orton's saying, but I just don't know. I just don't know if it's. I just don't know if it's right for Crown Jewel. I understand where he's saying that, like, if they're not there, then they're not there to bring Western culture over to Saudi Arabia and try to change things through their mere presence. But at the same time, like, if you go to this one so soon after this incident has happened, you're almost kind of rewarding them and not punishing them for, and not holding them accountable for their actions. Big Stupid, that's another thing they could do, but I doubt they would do it since they've been marketing it so well, is that they could have the show and not broadcast it on the network. But that might also cause them to lose money. I don't know if that's something that they could do. What do you mean by look at where the Olympics were? And nobody had a problem with the Olympics. Because the Olympics happened in South Korea, not North Korea. It was close to North Korea. And people were genuinely worried, but that situation also resolved itself in the final days and weeks leading into it. So the Olympics in 2018 didn't happen in North Korea. They happened in South Korea, which is a democratic country. So I don't know what the connection is you're trying to draw there. I'm sure you'll mention in the chat, but I'm going to try to move on to other news. And try to get through the rest of this because I got to wrap up hopefully within the next like 15 to 20 minutes. So in addition to all this big stuff going on in the world of WWE and the Crown Jewel controversy and all that stuff, there might be a new wrestling promotion coming on the horizon in late 2019, 2020, and it's got some big names attached. Apparently, news broke from SE Scoops, Sports Entertainment Scoops. It's an exclusive to them, apparently. I don't know if they mention their source, so take this with a grain of salt. Jim Ross apparently has been teasing something big coming. Well, Big Stupid, what I mean is I was gonna move on to other stories, but I can double back if you mention what you were talking about in the chat. So feel free to like explain what you were saying in the chat. I can double back to it. That what I was just saying is that I just didn't want to sit here. I wanted to like keep things moving. Anyway, Jim Ross has been teasing that something big is going to happen in the world of professional wrestling on his podcast. And SC Scoops is claiming that Chris Jericho and Jim Ross, through their agent, have reached some sort of deal to help form a new wrestling promotion, and that the project is going to be financed by the Khan family. Shahid Khan, who is the head of the Khan family and one of the wealthiest men in the world, he is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. There were recent discussions on whether or not he would move the team to London, but apparently there was enough of a backlash that he pulled out his bid to buy Wembley Stadium, apparently, and move the Jaguars to Wembley Stadium. But he also owns Fulham FC and the PL, the English Premier League. His son apparently is a big wrestling fan and wants to be and has been hands-on with trying to get this off on the ground, trying to build this new promotion. And the report also claims that he apparently he follows Cody Rhodes, Omega, the Young Bucks, Marty Scurll, and the report claims that Cody Rhodes, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks are on board for this project. It makes me believe that maybe this is a continuation of the whole all-in Jericho Cruise kind of movement that's going on with the Elite. No word on whether or not Kenny Omega is on board. But yeah, apparently the belief is that talks are underway with AXS, which airs New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're in talks for a TV deal there. And so yeah, apparently JR and Jericho are in talks or reaching a deal for a Khan family owned wrestling promotion. that is going to have the Elite on it, or at least some form of the Bullet Club in the shape of Cody, the Young Bucks, and Hangman Page. No other details are known right now. Jericho went on Twitter and said, "Oh, I'm starting a wrestling promotion. I'm also making a movie studio with Lady Gaga and a car wash with," and they mentioned another celebrity, kind of as a joke. I think he's trying to shrug it off and maybe throw people off the scent, because technically the report doesn't say that he's starting the wrestling promotion. It's that he is involved in the creation of it, but it's the Khan family that are financing and I believe who will own it and will operate it. So interesting news. We'll see what comes of that going forward. Let's see. It was Bono. He said that he was going to do the car wash for and open up his own bake shop apparently too. We also have an update with the Kevin Owens injury news. Kevin Owens, apparently, he got surgery on both of his knees. He made a joke on Twitter showing both of his legs in bandage wraps post-surgery, saying they had a 2-for-1 sale at the surgery store. According to Dave Meltzer, damage in one of his knees was worse than they thought. However, he is still expected to make a maximum 6-month recovery, and that he is expected to return to action in late February, early March. So... So that's going to be right around time for the big push to WrestleMania, but not in time to return to the Royal Rumble. So hopefully Kevin Owens will be back at Royal Rumble. Papa Smart, welcome to the chat. Yeah, you said Jericho denies everything. I haven't seen anything where he's been denying everything. All I've seen is the tweet that says that he denies that he is running a wrestling operation. He's trying to start out a wrestling operation. Just that he denies that he owns one, that he's running one. But this is just a thing where like his name is attached to it along with Jim Ross, that they're trying to get it going, not that they're running it. So meaning he denied that going back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Oh yeah. Okay, that's what you mean. That's true, Papa Smart. You're very right. He does deny everything. That's another thing. Actually, you're what you're doing is what you meant to say is that you're like basically helping the argument, which is very true. Yeah, he does deny doing almost everything. He also like denied all of his returns. So you're right. Yeah, he denied that he was going back to New Japan, then won the IC title. He didn't tell anybody about going to New Japan in the first place. He denies his WWE returns. So yeah, you're right. Jericho does deny pretty much everything. So you can't really take a Jericho denial seriously. Think stupid with regards to Owens. You say you always take the under on injury returns. You could see Owens as a surprise entrant. He could. Hopefully he'll be ahead of. I mean, it's projected that he'll be back late February, early March. But who knows? Hopefully, maybe they're overestimating, like you said. So that way people can be surprised when he comes back to the Royal Rumble, or maybe it is a realistic projection and he just blows through physical therapy and recovers quicker than expected. We also got some updates for the Battle Royale going on at WWE Evolution. We got the reveal of other women competing. As of right now, the current competitors are Asuka, Carmella, Nia Jax, Ember Moon, Naomi, Dana Brooke, Alicia Fox, Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose, Lana, Peyton Royce, Billie Kay, Tamina, and Tori Wilson. However, WWE announced that they will also be competing against Michelle McCool, Kelly Kelly, Alundra Blaze, Ivory, Molly Holly, and Maria Kanellis. So a slew of former WWE Women's Champions and Divas Champions and a pair of Hall of Famers in the form of Blaze and Ivory. So that's pretty cool. So that's going to be a stacked battle royal there. And then, oh, look, I found the NXT UK story that I buried amongst all my research. So I'll quickly just mention that Mastiff faced off against Sid Scala. That's who Mastiff faced off against. He was from England, from London. And Nina Samuels was who Tony Storm faced off against. And that's going to do it, actually, in fact, for the wrestling news. Yes, Chelsea's asking real quick if Ronda Rousey will be in Evolution. Yes, she is. She's in the main event. She is facing off in a women's championship match against Nikki Bella with Brie Bella at ringside. So let's transition over from the world of wrestling to the world of video games. And I feel like, man, I feel like video gaming has not been getting as much recently, but there's been a lot of stuff going on in the world of WWE as of late, and not so much going on in the world of gaming, I guess. Though there's a significant amount this week, even though we're in, like I say there's not much going on, even though we're in the heat of release season. A bunch of Red Dead Redemption news. The big thing that came out was that I believe it was Dan Houser. I'm trying to find out. It was one of the guys, one of the main heads of Rockstar, was mentioning that the people that he was with worked 100-hour work weeks. In a interview with, I believe it was the New Yorker magazine. He's since stepped back on that and said, no, what I really meant was it was just my writing team in the final 3 weeks, and we're all workaholics, so we do that. Several other current Rockstar members apparently came out and said that they've never worked 100-hour weeks in their lives. Sometimes they'll work up to 50 hours a week. Normally, if they work overtime, it's 42 to 46 hours a week. And they mentioned that they work over, that they get paid overtime, that there's an overtime system. However, there are people who used to work with Rockstar who don't anymore, who said back in the day they used to work overtime. They were expected to work overtime and work as much as the founders, and if they didn't, that it was seen as negative. And that apparently Rockstar Games was a toxic place to work. Dan Houser, I believe it was, it was Dan Houser who the original quote came from. So one of them was, I believe it was Job Stuffer, who also was formerly of Telltale Games, talked about this. And I know for a fact when I first left WWE, there was an opening for Rockstar in New York City for I believe it was a PR position. And I had a connection in the company who was hopefully going to help me get an interview. And I reached out to a couple of people that I knew in the gaming journalism industry. And one of them told me, do not pursue that job. They said, I know several people who've worked at Rockstar, and it is a nightmare situation. So I ended up not pursuing that position because Rockstar, apparently in the gaming industry, does have a bad reputation for this. And based on the testimonials of people now, maybe it's something that Rockstar has changed over the last couple of years, and it's not like that anymore, but it has a reputation. So when I first heard this news of 100-hour work weeks, I wasn't that shocked. But a lot of current employees are coming out defending the company, saying that that's not the way it is anymore. So it's very interesting to see, and it's hard to figure out what's true, what isn't. And there's also a report that in the wake of all of this, that Rockstar explicitly is now telling people that overtime is optional. They don't have to feel obligated to work overtime. Let me see if I can pull the quote. This is from IGN. I'm just going to read the report. Surrounding the controversy of Rockstar employees working mandatory 100-hour work weeks during the development of Red Dead Redemption 2, a UK-based office, Rockstar Lincoln, has decided to switch their system of mandatory overtime to voluntary, according to Kotaku. So apparently they had mandatory overtime in Rockstar Lincoln. Kotaku originally heard from 6 sources and was told differently from Rockstar's head of publishing, Jen Colby, that overtime was never mandatory, but was part of a system that involved requesting and scheduling overtime by bosses, but that employees could always say no. Yeah, and a quote from Colby says, "Through the conversation we've been having, it is clear to us that the requested scheduled overtime felt like an obligation to some, if not many, of the team. We therefore spoke to them and made sure it is clear that the OT is not mandatory. The decision is a direct result of multiple employees speaking freely of the overtime requirement for Red Dead Redemption 2, which was first mentioned by Vulture by Rockstar, co-founder and vice president of creativity, Dan Houser. We were working 100-hour weeks, Houser said, which immediately gained traction on social media Monday. The Rockstar employees Kotaku heard from said the Lincoln studio was one of the worst in terms of the company's forced overtime. A QA tester from Rockstar Lincoln posted a piece on Reddit on Friday detailing their experience with overtime. The poster broke down how overtime works at the Lincoln studio and clarified that all employees do get paid for their overtime, but that until now it was always expected of them. If we are not able to work overtime on a certain day without a good reason, you have to make it up on another day. This usually means that if you want a full weekend off, that you would have to work a double weekend to make up for it. The Reddit user posted. The poster then wrote they attended a meeting Friday where the company said overtime will be different beginning the following week. We had a big meeting today where it was announced that all overtime going forward will be entirely optional. So if you want to work the extra hours and earn the extra money, as well as make yourself look better for progression, then we can. But there is no longer a rule making us do it. This is huge for us here in Lincoln, as many of us haven't been able to take full weekends without paying for it in a long time, and it's a giant step forward in making crunch less of a hell to deal with. On Wednesday, Rockstar allowed their employees to speak publicly about their time spent working on Red Dead Redemption 2, which was not the first time working conditions were brought up at Rockstar. So, very interesting situation going on at Rockstar. It's like, as I mentioned, Rockstar has a industry-wide reputation of working people to death, but hopefully with this latest development, things will change and it won't feel like people are obligated to work overtime at Rockstar in order to keep their jobs or get ahead. Moving on to other Red Dead Redemption 2 news. It came out that Red Dead Redemption is going to be a 2-disc install, requiring, and that it was going to be a 99 gigabyte install. For anybody who buys a physical copy, there is going to be a data disc, which includes the majority of the installation, and then a play disc, which is going to allow you to play the game off of that disc. And then we also got the launch trailer for Red Dead Redemption 2, which looks really good and focuses in on how Dutch's actions are seeming to be questioned by the main character, Morgan, and the gang around them. We also got an actual speaking line from John Marston featuring the original voice actor, which was really cool. I advise that if anybody is interested in the game, they go check it out. It's pretty cool. And I'm trying to get other news. That was another instance from the Rockstar stuff. Also, in Sony news, Days Gone has been delayed by 2 months. Sony has pushed the game off to April 2019. It was originally slated for 2018 launch. Then it was put down for February 22nd, 2019, and now it's been pushed back 2 days. I will say, as I normally do, when a game gets delayed, it's a Miyamoto quote, or a quote that's been credited to Shigeru Miyamoto of Nintendo. A delayed game may not be bad, but a rushed game or a game that is released, I'm paraphrasing like crazy right now, I'm butchering it, but a game released before it is ready is bad forever. So I feel like delays are only a good thing because it means that stuff got caught and needs to be the game needs to be polished. Pardon me, to be made better. So for anybody who was looking forward to Days Gone, just know that it's coming out 2 months later. Chelsea says the only game she's waiting for is Kingdom Hearts, which actually came out with new screenshots of the Olympus area featuring Hercules. There was an image of Zeus, images of Hades. There was a shot of Maleficent. So if you're into Kingdom Hearts, like Chelsea, go take a look at those. They look pretty cool. Big stupid with regards to the Red Dead Redemption storage space. So basically go buy a PS4 Pro if you want to play this game. That or upgrade your hard drive. Or wait for it to come out on PC and buy it on PC. Pretty much. The game's going to be that big. Spider-Man's first DLC, by the way, adds more story next week. This is coming from Polygon. A new storyline for Spider-Man on PlayStation 4 launches next week, kicking off a series of story-based download content for the game, alongside the Heist, the first chapter, and the 3-part The City That Never Sleeps DLC. Insomniac That Games is adding 3 additional Spidey suits, as well as new game options as part of a separate update. The Heist stars Black Cat, one of the most classic characters in Spider-Man comics. Not only is the woman otherwise known as Felicia Hardy one of Spidey's greatest frenemies, she's also Peter Parker's ex. So look forward to some more relationship drama. A teaser above in the story also hints at what's to come from the beginning of the storyline. So it looks like there's a trailer out as well. Also, in Spider-Man news, New Game Plus, I believe, also came out this week. So if you've already beaten Spider-Man but want to play it again, you can do so. Also, Destiny made their 2.04 patch this week, which revealed Festival of the Lost, their Halloween-themed event coming out. Scout rifles have also been changed to deal extra damage. There were a lot of bug fixes done. And Iron Banner is back, and now when you turn in bounties with Iron Banner, instead of just getting progress towards your level and whatnot, you will actually get powerful engrams to help you level up. And they've changed the way that you can track quests. Let's see. You can actually track 3 things at once instead of just 1, which is a big deal because it's annoying to only have to be able to chase or follow or have one thing highlighted at once, especially when multiple things might be able to be accomplished at the same time. And then another thing that came out with Festival of the Lost is that the weapon you get from Festival of the Lost is at 500 power. So if you get that, helps you level up better. Chelsea, you're taking off for the Alabama game. Take care. Thanks and congratulations on the new puppy Poppins, by the way. And thank you for I believe it was a 10-bit cheer. Yes, 10-bit cheer. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Battlefield 5 also came out with a single-player story trailer. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to watch it. So if you're interested in Battlefield 5, go check it out. Soul Calibur V released to mostly positive reviews. It's got an 84 scoring on Metacritic, and apparently it is it's generally believed to be a strong addition to the series. Good, strong fighting game with the reversal edge and soul charge mechanics, adding a new layer of strategy to the game. Also coming out was Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which, though lacking in a campaign, was received very positively, a 8.5 Metascore. And generally what shines the brightest is Blackout. People are saying that Blackout is a very strong battle royale mode. A lot of people expected Activision, just because they have the Call of Duty name attached to it, for it to be half-assed, but apparently it is very, very good. So if you picked up the game and you're looking forward to Blackout, you are not going to be disappointed. All the positive things that I've been seeing has made me kind of intrigued to maybe want to at least take a look at some videos. As people know, I do enjoy my battle royale games, so I might give it a look. Apparently Zombies mode was also very good. The standard multiplayer was the low point. Pretty much same old Call of Duty. So if you're into that kind of thing and you're buying Call of Duty to get Call of Duty, you'll get your multiplayer fix. But if you're kind of tired of the regular Call of Duty thing, Blackout is apparently a standout mode that might be worth checking out. And then another story, there will be a Black Ops 4 DLC pack where money that is earned, that 100% of the proceeds they receive will go towards placing US and UK veterans into meaningful jobs through Call of Duty endowment system. This is a story from IGN. So Call of Duty's been talking about WWE so much in the show, because wrestling took up so much of it. I am thinking WWE, but Call of Duty Black Ops 4's newest DLC pack, the Call of Duty Endowment Salute Pack, has 100% of the proceeds going towards placing US and UK veterans into meaningful jobs throughout the Call of Duty Endowment. Activision Blizzard announces the details of this new in-game pack that is available now and includes an in-game tag, sticker, gesture, calling card, and emblem. The Call of Duty Endowment Salute Pack is available on PS4, Xbox One, and PC and retails for $5. As previously mentioned, all the proceeds go to veterans, helping these veterans secure quality careers when they leave military service. The Call of Duty Endowment is a non-profit foundation that was started in 2009 by Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick and has helped over 50,000 veterans. A new goal has been set for the foundation to secure career placement for 100,000 veterans by 2024. And so if you pick up this DLC pack, you will help raise money to help Activision Blizzard reach its goal through the Call of Duty Endowment. What is it? Just Call of Duty Endowment organization. And then a couple more stories in the gaming realm. In Fortnite news, Fortnite has revealed that the game will be receiving in-game tournaments that will be open for anybody to join. Announced, this story also coming from IGN, announced by the Fortnite esports team. These tournaments will each have scheduled dates and times, during which all players will begin with a clean slate and the same score every time and get to fight for glory. So these will basically be tournaments. Let's see. Fortnite players will compete over several hours of intense competition to earn as many points as possible, and will earn these points by placing high in each match and or eliminating as many opponents as possible. The tournaments will feature a target score that all players will strive to achieve. And reaching said score will award you with a shiny pin, and in the future, this pin may automatically advance you in the tournament or earn you special prizes. Matchmaking will match you with players of a similar point standing and will scale depending on how you perform, and crossplay must be enabled to participate. So that means every Fortnite player, regardless if they are playing a mouse or keyboard, a controller, or via touch interface, will be in the same competition. So good luck to anybody playing on PS4 and Xbox trying to deal with PC players who have the increased frame rate and the ability to use a mouse. Yes, I saw that tweet that Elon Musk deleted Fortnite, which was funny. The first tournament, Alpha Tournament, which is solos, will begin tomorrow. That was as of, when was this? This was on the 15th, so it happened already. And it'll be going on all this week, though. It doesn't end until tomorrow, so you can still take part in the tournament, the Alpha Tournament, if you want. The next one, Beta, which will be duos, takes place on October 23rd. Starts next week. Then they will have a Friday Night Fortnite starting October 19th and going until November 30th, which is a squad. Is a tournament that happens. Squad tournament that happens every Friday. Says join your friends every Friday and kick off your weekend with some exciting squad action. There will then be a Salty Springs Cup from October 27th to October 31st. So it's like a Halloween weekend kind of thing. 1 week and 3 attempts to prove you're the saltiest that Salty Springs has to offer. And there will be a Tomato Temple Cup duos, which will take place from October 28th to November 1st. So basically that same time frame almost. Basically, become Legends of the Tomato Temple Cup. So that's all the Fortnite news. And the final little piece of news, just a fun little news for anybody who knows of Sean Bean. Sean Bean is a well-known actor who famously dies in all the appearances he is in. He was the villain of GoldenEye, playing Alec Trevelyan. He was Boromir in The Lord of the Rings, and he was Eddard Stark in Game of Thrones. He famously dies in almost all of his roles, and he's taking on another role where he will die. He is going to be the target in the next part of Hitman 2. He's going to voice the character of Mark Faba. He is the game's first elusive target mission, Kill the Undying. Bean is basically portraying a character that you will eventually kill, but surprisingly actually has a knack for not being able to die. He has survived multiple attempts on his life, and the character says, with Bean's voice, says, it's a talent of sorts, I suppose. I never expected it to be like this, but they keep trying to kill me, you know? I've cheated death countless times. I'm like a stage magician. I know all the tricks. I think they think they're clever, but they've got nothing on me. I even managed to make them think I'd been blown up, which is kind of funny and very, very meta. because it's almost as if Sean Bean is providing a meta commentary on his own career, where it's like they keep trying to kill me by killing me, but I keep surviving and I keep getting roles and I keep on doing this. So very cool. There's a trailer on the Elusive Target where he says all these things that you can go check out, but I thought it was really cool and interesting that Sean Bean's going to play a character that you have to kill, and it's meta of the fact that like people keep trying to kill this character and they can't, and it's just a meta discussion on Sean Bean's career. Very kind of cool. And with that, that is the last gaming news story of the show, which means we have come to the end of episode number 66 of the Super Grapple Bros podcast. People who are watching, listening, be it live or in VOD form, or again, listening to it in the audio version, thank you so much for listening and watching or watching. You can catch this episode live. Every single episode is usually streamed on Twitch, typically on a Saturday. You can find it at twitch.tv/L_Murpho. You can also watch it back in VOD form there as I clip off every single episode as a highlights. That way it lives beyond the general stream life on Twitch. You can also catch this show on VOD playback form on YouTube at youtube.com/LMurphoReal. You can also listen to this audio version of the podcast by searching Super Grapple Bros on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, and lots of other places where podcasts can be found. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. The reviews really help the podcast, help become an officially rated and reviewed podcast, which means people can find it easier and gets more people involved in the discussion. Also, do not forget on YouTube to like, share, and subscribe the videos there. If you want to get involved in the discussion but cannot do so via the live chat, or if you are in the live chat and you want to get involved in talks and discussions on the podcast when the podcast isn't live, you can comment on YouTube, or you can get involved in two other ways, which is joining the Discord server, the El Murpho Discord server, which can be found on the channel page on Twitch, show notes in the audio version, and every single video description on YouTube. Join there. We have two channels within the server. One is general feedback and discussion. The other is a viewer predictions, which we will be doing predictions, I believe. Next weekend is when we will be able to do predictions for Evolution. If not next weekend, then the weekend after. So if you want to put your predictions to the test against myself, D-Murph if he's around, and or other viewers, you can do so. Whoever gets the most predictions correct among the viewers gets a shout out on the review show. And if you beat myself and or D-Murph in the predictions, you also get a shout out. And you can also find out when we go live via the Discord server, because I always make an announcement when we go live in the Discord server in the announcements channel. So you'll know when the live stream starts. You can also know when the live stream starts by following myself or D-Murph on Twitter. I am at L_Murpho. He is at DMurph_42. Big Stupid, you're asking any thought on live casting of Evolution yet? I don't know what do you mean by live casting? I don't know what you mean by that. So before I sign out in the episode, I want to get some clarity on that, and I'll just use this as a way to find out what I'm going to pick for a kayfabe news article of the week, because once again, I did not look for one of those. Let's see. What we did with Rumble, if we're going to do Evolution. I don't know, because given the situation surrounding D-Murph and his household, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, D-Murph is back. Like his work schedule is stabilized, but he found out that there was something going on with his house, and the house needs repairs. So it all depends on how that situation goes off. I'm going to be meeting with D-Murph, hanging out with D-Murph soon when I go to one of his daughter's soccer games. So when I talk to him, I'll probably have a better idea on what's going on with that if we end up live streaming Evolution. So we'll find out. All right. So there really isn't a lot of new kayfabe news articles going on, but I found a good one. So we're going to leave you with the kayfabe news article of the episode, which is Vince McMahon reportedly, quote unquote, furious after learning some wrestling matches may be rigged. Shocker. Apparently Vinnie Mac did not know this entire time. Them producers got some explaining to do. All right, that's going to do it for episode 66 of the Super Grab Bros podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you next time. Probably next week. Should be next week. With what I believe will be Evolution predictions. So thanks all for watching or listening. And I'll catch you next time. Peace, deuces, deuce, all that stuff. Laters. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Shut up and sit down.